Jake Martinez wiped the grease from his hands and looked around his small workshop. The day was almost over, and he had fixed only 2 broken engine parts. It's not enough money to pay the rent next month. His workshop sat alone in the Nevada desert, 20 miles from the nearest town. Most people thought he was crazy to work so far from everything. But Jake liked the quiet. The sun was setting behind the mountains when Jake heard a strange sound. It was like metal scraping against rock, followed by a loud crash. He grabbed his flashlight and walked outside. The desert was getting dark, but he could see smoke rising from behind a small hill near his workshop. Jake climbed over the rocky ground toward the smoke. His boots crunched on the dry sand as he walked. When he reached the top of the hill, he stopped and stared. A silver object about the size of a small car had crashed into the desert floor. It was not like any aircraft Jake had ever seen. Metal was smooth and seemed to glow softly in the dark. Steam was coming from cracks in the strange machine. Jake moved closer, his heart beating fast. As he got near, he heard a sound that made him freeze. Someone was crying inside the crashed ship. Not human crying, but something else. Something that sounded scared and hurt. Jake walked around the ship until he found an opening. Part of the side had been torn away in the crash. He pointed his flashlight inside and saw something that made him gasp. A small creature was trapped under a piece of twisted metal. It was about 3 feet tall, with pale skin that had patterns of light running through it like tiny stars. The patterns were very dim, flickering like a dying light bulb. The creature looked up at Jake with large, dark eyes. It made a soft sound, like a whisper mixed with music. Jake could see that one of its legs was crushed, and its back was bent in a way that looked very wrong. This dark fluid, probably blood, was pooling around it. Jake had always been good with his hands and bad with words. He did not think about what the creature was, or where it came from. He only saw that it was hurt and needed help. He set down his flashlight and carefully lifted the piece of metal that was pinning the creature down. The small being made another musical sound, this one softer. It pointed to a small device that had fallen near its head. Jake picked it up. The device was warm and smooth, like polished stone. As soon as he touched it, words appeared in his mind, not heard but somehow understood. "Thank you," the voice said inside his head. "I am Keith. I am hurt badly." Jake nearly dropped the device. It never believed in aliens or flying saucers. But here was proof right in front of him. "I'm Jake," he said out loud, not sure if the creature could understand. "Can you move?" "No," came the voice through the device. "My spine is damaged. I cannot feel my legs. Among my people, this means I can never fly again, never work again. I am useless now." The sadness in those words hit Jake hard. He had felt useless many times in his life, especially after his small business started failing. But this creature seemed to think his life was over just because he could not walk. "Nobody is useless," Jake said firmly. "Let me help you." Jake carefully lifted Keth from the wreckage. The alien was lighter than he expected, like holding a child. Keth's breathing was shallow and quick. The light patterns under his skin were getting dimmer. Jake carried Keth back to his workshop and laid him on a clean workbench. He had some medical supplies from his time working on oil rigs, where accidents happened often. He cleaned Keth's wounds as gently as he could and wrapped them with bandages. The alien's blood was silver instead of red, but it seemed to clot the same way human blood did. "Why are you helping me?" Keth asked through the device. "Your species and mine have never met before. You do not know what I am." Jake looked at Keth's pale face and dim light patterns. "Because you're hurt and I can help. That's enough reason for me." Over the next few hours, Jake learned more about Keth and his people, the Villani. They were explorers and scouts who traveled between the stars. Keth had been mapping this part of space when his ship had mechanical problems and crashed on Earth. His people were masters of technology that connected directly to their nervous systems. They could control their ships just by thinking about it. "But now I cannot connect to any of our machines," Keth explained. "The damage to my spine has cut off the neural pathways we use. I am trapped here, unable to call for help or repair my ship. Even if my people find me, I will be a burden to them forever. Jake cleaned his tools while he listened. He had always been good at solving problems with machines, but this was different. This was about fixing something that seemed impossible to fix. Your ship, Jake said. How does it work exactly? Keth tried to explain, but much of it was beyond Jake's understanding. The Villani ships use something called bioneural interfaces. The pilot's nervous system had to connect directly with the ship's computer. Without that connection, the ship was just a piece of metal. What if we built a different kind of interface? Jake asked. Something that does not need your nervous system to work? Keth's light patterns flickered a little brighter. Impossible. Our technology has worked this way for thousands of years. There is no other way. Maybe there is no other way for your people, Jake said. But humans do things differently. We use our hands and our eyes and our voices to control our machines. What if I built you a ship that works the human way? Keth was quiet for a long time. His light patterns pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. You would do this? Build me a ship? But I have nothing to give you in return. Jake looked at the small alien lying on his workbench. Keth was far from home, hurt and scared, just like Jake had been many times in his life. The difference was that Jake had always been able to get back up and try again. Keth thought he would never fly again. I do not want anything in return, Jake said. I want to help because it's the right thing to do, because I think it might be possible. Keth's patterns grew brighter, the first time since Jake had found him. My people will say it cannot be done. They will say humans are too primitive. To understand our technology, Jake smiled. Well, I guess we'll just have to prove them wrong. That night, Jake moved a cot into his workshop so he could watch over Keth. The alien slept fitfully, his light patterns dim and irregular. Jake lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what he had promised. He had no idea how to build a spaceship. He barely knew how to keep his own workshop running, but as he listened to Keth's quiet breathing, Jake felt something he had not felt in months. He felt needed. Someone was counting on him, and that someone had nowhere else to turn. Jake had always worked better when he had a real problem to solve, not just broken engines and bent metal in the morning. Jake would start the most important project of his life. He would try to give Keth back his wings. Was possible, but he knew he had to try. Sometimes, Jake thought, as he finally fell asleep, the most important things in life were the ones that seemed impossible. Jake woke up before sunrise and found Keth already awake, staring at the ceiling. The alien's light patterns were brighter today, which Jake hoped was a good sign. He made coffee and heated some soup for breakfast. Keth could only drink water, but he seemed grateful for the company. I have been thinking about your idea all night, Keth said through his translation device. Building a ship that does not need neural connection seems impossible, but you humans seem to like impossible things. Jake laughed. We do like a good challenge. First, I need to understand how your ship worked. Can you show me the pieces that are still good? Together, they went back to the crash site. Jake brought his tools and a wheelbarrow. Keth sat in an old wheelchair Jake had found in his storage room. It was not made for aliens, but it worked well enough. Keth directed Jake to the important parts of his ship that had survived the crash. The technology was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The metal felt warm to the touch and seemed to bend light around it. Some pieces hummed with energy even though they were broken. Keth explained what each part did, though Jake understood only half of what he heard. This is the navigation core, Keth said, pointing to a crystal that glowed with soft blue light. It reads the space around the ship and finds safe paths between stars. But it only responds to direct neural contact. Jake picked up the crystal. It was warm and seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. What if we could make it respond to something else, like sound or touch? Impossible, Keth said automatically, then paused. But then yesterday, I would have said it was impossible for a human to understand any of our technology. They spent the morning collecting salvageable parts. Jake loaded everything into his wheelbarrow and pushed it back to the workshop. His back ached, but his mind was racing with ideas. He had built aircraft engines before and rockets for hobby projects. This was bigger, but the basic ideas were the same. Something had to push the ship forward. Something had to steer it. Someone had to control it all. The afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Jake heard a car engine outside and looked up to see a dusty red pickup truck pulling up to his workshop. His heart sank. Only one person knew where to find him out here. Lisa Hayes climbed out of the truck, her brown hair tied back and her clothes covered in desert dust. She had been Jake's business partner in college, and they had started the workshop together before she moved to the city for a better job. She still owned half the business, though she rarely visited. "Jake, I got your rent notice forwarded to me," Lisa called out as she walked toward the workshop. "I came to see if we need to close down and sell the equipment." She stopped in the doorway when she saw Keth sitting in the wheelchair next to a pile of glowing alien technology. Her mouth fell open, and she stood frozen for several seconds. "Lisa, meet Keth," Jake said calmly. "Keth, this is Lisa. She's my business partner." Lisa's training as an engineer kicked in after the initial shock. She had always been more practical than Jake, better with electronics and computers while he was better with mechanical things. She walked slowly toward Keth, her eyes wide but her mind clearly working. "You're actually an alien," she said to Keth, "from another planet." "Yes," Keth replied through his device. "I crashed here 3 days ago. Jake has been helping me." Lisa looked at Jake with an expression he remembered from college. It was the look she got when he had an idea that was either brilliant or completely crazy. "And what exactly are you helping him with?" "I'm going to build him a spaceship," Jake said. "One he can pilot even though he's paralyzed." Lisa stared at him for a long moment, then started laughing. It's not mean laughter, but the kind of laugh that comes when something is so impossible it becomes funny. "Jake Martinez, you never could think small. Show me what you've got." For the next hour, Jake and Keth explained everything to Lisa. She asked hundreds of questions, taking notes on her tablet and examining each piece of alien technology carefully. Her electronics background helped her understand parts of Villani, technology that Jake had missed. "The neural interface works like a very advanced computer connection," she explained to Jake. "Instead of using cables or wireless signals, it uses the electrical impulses from Keth's nervous system. But electricity is electricity. We should be able to make a different kind of interface." "How?" Jake asked. Lisa picked up one of the smaller alien devices. It looked like a metallic flower with crystal petals. "This is a command processor. It takes neural signals and turns them into ship functions." "What if we could feed it different signals? Eye movements, voice commands, hand gestures?" Keth's light patterns flickered with interest. "That might work for simple commands, but flying between stars requires split-second decisions and complex calculations. No pilot could do it with just voice and hand movements." "Then we make the ship smarter," Lisa said. "We program it to handle the complex stuff automatically and let Keth make the big decisions." Jake felt excitement building in his chest. With Lisa's help, this crazy idea might actually work. "So we're really doing this? It's building a spaceship? In my workshop?" "We're really doing this," Lisa confirmed. "I'll take a leave of absence from my city job. This is too interesting to miss." The next few days turned Jake's quiet workshop into a place of constant activity. Lisa brought equipment from the city, including computers and electronics that Jake could never afford. Keth shared more details about Villani technology, amazed by how quickly the two humans understood and adapted his people's advanced science. The ship they designed was small. It's barely big enough for one pilot. Jake built the frame from lightweight aluminum and carbon fiber, materials he knew well from his aircraft work. The shape was different from human planes, more like a teardrop that could slip easily through space. Lisa worked on the control systems, creating interfaces that could translate human actions into commands the alien technology could understand. She mounted cameras that would track Keth's eye movements
Microphones
for voice commands, and touchpads he could reach with his limited hand movement. The hardest part was connecting human and alien technology. The two systems used completely different approaches to everything. Human machines used electricity and wires and circuits. Villani machines used something more like the electrical signals in living brains. "It's like trying to connect a computer to a flower," Lisa complained on the 4th day, rubbing her tired eyes. Every time I think I understand how their tech works, it does something completely different. But slowly, piece by piece, the connections began to work. Jake's mechanical skills combined with Lisa's electronics knowledge and Keth's understanding of his own technology. The alien was amazed by human creativity and the willingness to try new approaches. My people have used the same methods for thousands of years, Keth told them one evening as they worked late under bright workshop lights. We became very good at those methods, but we stopped trying new ones. You humans try everything, even ideas that seem impossible, especially ideas that seem impossible, Jake corrected with a grin. The ship grew day by day in Jake's workshop. It was not beautiful like the sleek Villani scout ship had been, but it was solid and practical. Jake painted it dark blue with silver stripes, colors that reminded him of the night sky. On the 7th day, Lisa finished programming the last of the control systems. The ship was complete, or as complete as they could make it with the materials. They had it sat in the middle of the workshop like a metal egg, covered in human and alien technology. Tomorrow we test it, Jake said, looking at their creation. Tomorrow we find out if this crazy idea actually works. Keth's light patterns pulsed brightly, the brightest Jake had seen since finding him in the desert. For the first time in days, the alien looked hopeful instead of resigned. Whatever happens tomorrow, Keth said, you have already given me something I thought I had lost forever. Yes. You have given me hope. The morning air was cool and still as Jake wheeled Keth outside. A small ship, which they had named Harmony, sat on a launching platform Jake had built from steel beams and hydraulic jacks. The ship looked strange in the desert sunlight. Its mix of human and alien technology creating an appearance unlike anything that had ever flown. Lisa ran final checks on her control systems, connecting her tablet to diagnostic ports she had built into the ship's hull. Numbers and readings flowed across her screen. Everything looks good from the electronics side, she reported. The eye tracking is calibrated, voice recognition is active, and the touch controls respond properly. Jake had spent the early morning, hours checking every bolt, wire, and joint on the ship. His hands were dirty with grease, and his back ached from crawling around the small craft, but he felt satisfied with the build quality. She's as ready as we can make her, he said. Keth sat quietly in his wheelchair, staring at the ship that might give him back his freedom. His light patterns pulsed slowly, like a nervous heartbeat. I am frightened, he admitted through his translation device. What if it does not work? What if I crash again? Then we'll build you another one, Jake said simply. But I don't think you'll crash. Lisa and I built this ship to be safe and easy to control. Trust yourself, and trust what we've made together. Lisa helped Keth transfer from his wheelchair into the ship's pilot seat. They had designed the cockpit specifically for his injured body, with extra padding and support where he needed it. The control interfaces were all within easy reach of his hands and eyes. Remember, Lisa said as she secured Keth's safety harness. Start with simple commands. Look at the green light to activate the engines. Say liftoff to rise slowly. Ship will handle most of the flying automatically until you're comfortable with the controls. Jake connected the ship's power systems and stepped back. The alien technology hummed to life, creating a low sound that seemed to vibrate through the ground. The ship's hull began to glow softly, the same way Keth's skin patterns glowed. Power systems are online, Keth reported, his voice excited for the first time since the crash. Navigation is responding. I can feel the ship's systems, but differently than before. Instead of connecting through my spine, it's like the ship is listening to my thoughts and actions. That's exactly what it's doing, Lisa said proudly. Programmed it to learn from you as you fly. The longer you use it, the better it will understand what you want. Keth looked at the green activation light and blinked twice, the signal they had programmed for engine start. The ship's engines came to life with a sound like wind through crystal caves. The small craft lifted smoothly off the launching platform. Rising 10 feet into the air and hovering steadily, Jake and Lisa cheered and hugged each other. Their impossible project was actually working. Keth was flying again. For the next hour, Keth tested the ship's systems. He made it rise and fall, turn left and right, and perform gentle loops in the air above the workshop. His voice over the Radio was filled with joy and wonder. "It's beautiful," he said. "Flying feels different than before, but just as free. The ship responds to me like a partner instead of just a tool. I think I like this way better." Eventually, Keth landed the ship back on the platform. When Jake and Lisa helped him out of the cockpit, his light patterns were brighter than they had ever been. Tears of happiness ran down his pale cheeks. "You have given me back my life," he said to both humans. "I will never forget this kindness. My people need to know what you have done." That evening, they celebrated with a simple meal outside the workshop. Keth could not eat human food, but he seemed happy to share the moment with his new friends. As the stars came out overhead, he pointed to a constellation Jake did not recognize. "My home is in that direction," Keth said. 3 days of flying in the Harmony, maybe 4. "I have been away from my family for too long." "When will you leave?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. "Tomorrow morning," Keth replied. "I have stayed too long already. My people will be searching for me, and they worry when scouts do not return on time." Jake felt a sadness he had not expected. Over the past week, Keth had become more than just a project or a problem to solve. He'd become a friend. But Jake understood that Keth needed to go home. Before dawn the next day, they prepared the Harmony for its first real journey. Lisa loaded the ship's computer with navigation data Keth had provided, and Jake filled the fuel systems with the special mixture they had developed. The ship would need to work perfectly for days without any chance for repairs. "I have something for you," Keth said as they finished the preparations. He handed Jake a small device that looked like a smooth stone but felt warm and alive. "This is a beacon. It will always be honored among my people. If you ever need help, activate it, and the Volani will come." Jake tucked the beacon into his pocket. "Thank you. I hope we meet again someday." "I am certain we will," Keth said. "What you have done here will change things between our peoples. You have shown that humans and Volani can work together to create something neither could make alone." Lisa hugged Keth carefully, mindful of his injuries. "Take care of yourself up there. Take care of our ship. I will treat the Harmony like the precious gift it is," Keth promised. They watched as Keth settled into the pilot's seat one last time. The ship's systems activated smoothly, and the small craft lifted into the morning sky. It rose higher and higher until it was just a speck against the blue. Then it flashed once with silver light and vanished. Traveling faster than anything Jake had ever seen, Jake and Lisa stood in the desert silence, watching the empty sky, where their friend had disappeared. The workshop felt quiet and ordinary again, just a small building in the middle of nowhere. "So what do we do now?" Lisa asked. "I guess we go back to fixing broken engines," Jake said with a shrug. "Though it might seem a little boring after building a spaceship." They were walking back toward the workshop when Lisa's tablet started, beeping with urgent alerts. She looked at the screen, and her face went pale. "Jake, you need to see this," she said, holding up the tablet. The screen showed a news report from around the world. Massive objects had appeared in Earth's sky, visible even in daylight. The objects were ships, larger than anything humans had ever built, hanging motionless above major cities. Jake counted 3 of the giant ships on the news footage. Each one was the size of a small city, dark and angular, with patterns of light running along their hulls. They had appeared without warning and were not responding to any attempts at communication. "Those are Volani ships," Jake said quietly, recognizing the design patterns from Keth's crashed scout ship, but they're huge warships. On the tablet screen, military jets were scrambling around the alien vessels, looking like gnats next to elephants. World leaders were giving emergency speeches. Stock markets were crashing. People were panicking in the streets. "Are they here?" Lisa asked. "What do they want?" Jake had a terrible feeling in his stomach. He pulled out the beacon Keth had given him. It was warm, warmer than before, and it was starting to glow with a soft blue light. "I think they're looking for Keth," he said, "and I think they're about to find us." Even as he spoke, Jake could see something in the distance. One of the massive ships was moving, breaking away from the others, was coming toward them, growing larger as it approached. The ship was so big it cast a shadow over the entire valley. Jake and Lisa stood frozen as the war cruiser descended from the sky, its bulk blocking out the morning sun. Landing legs the size of buildings extended from its hull as it settled onto the desert floor with surprising gentleness. The ground shook under their feet. Wind from the ship's engines scattered sand and tumbleweeds across the landscape. When the dust settled, Jake and Lisa found themselves standing in the shadow of a vessel that dwarfed everything they had ever imagined. A section of the ship's hull opened with a sound like distant thunder. Lights appeared in the opening, and figures began to emerge. They were Villani, but different from Keth. These were tall and imposing, their light patterns bright and commanding. "I think our quiet life in the desert just ended," Lisa whispered. Jake squeezed the beacon in his pocket and hoped that Keth's promise of friendship would be enough to keep them alive. Jake and Lisa watched as the massive ship settled completely onto the desert floor. The landing created a small earthquake that rattled the windows of Jake's workshop. Sand and rocks scattered everywhere as the ship's engines finally went quiet. Silence that followed was more frightening than the noise had been. Jake could feel his heart beating fast as he stared at the enormous vessel. It was dark gray with blue lights running along its edges, and it was covered in what looked like weapon ports. This was clearly a warship, built for fighting.
What?
"We do?" Lisa whispered, staying close to Jake's side. "We wait," Jake said, trying to sound calmer than he felt. "We hope that Keth told them we're friends." A large section of the ship's side opened like a mouth, revealing a bright interior. A ramp extended down to the desert floor. Figures appeared in the opening, silhouetted against the light. They were clearly Villani, but much larger than Keth had been. The first alien to walk down the ramp was impressive and intimidating. It stood nearly 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and light patterns that pulsed with authority. Unlike Keth's gentle glow, this Villani's patterns were bright and sharp, like lightning frozen under the skin. Behind the leader came a dozen other Villani, all tall and strong-looking. They carried devices that were probably weapons, though Jake hoped they would not need to use them. The group moved with military precision as they approached. Jake and Lisa, the leader, stopped 10 feet away and studied the two humans with large, dark eyes. When it spoke, its voice came from a translation device similar to Keth's, but the tone was much more commanding. "I am Commander Vex of the Villani Expeditionary Fleet," the alien said. "You are the humans who were in contact with Scout." Keth, it was not a question. Jake stepped forward, trying to appear confident despite his fear. "I'm Jake Martinez," says Lisa Hayes. "We helped Keth after his ship crashed." Commander Vex's light patterns flickered in what might have been surprise. "You admit this freely?" Yeah. "You do not attempt to deny your involvement?" "Why would we deny it?" Jake asked, confused. "We're proud of what we did. Keth needed help, and we gave it to him." The commander exchanged glances with the other Villani. Some of them made sounds that the translation device did not convert to words. Commander Vex stepped closer to Jake, looming over the smaller human. "Do you understand the situation you have created?" Vex asked. "Scout Keth disappeared in this system over 2 weeks ago, when his distress beacon finally activated yesterday. We traced it to this planet. We came prepared for war, expecting to find that your species had captured and tortured one of our people." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Tortured? We didn't torture anybody. We saved his life." "So Scout Keth reported," Vex said, his tone suggesting he did not quite believe it. "He claims that not only did you treat his injuries, but that you built him a new ship when you learned he could no longer pilot Villani technology. This seems impossible." Lisa found her voice. "It's not impossible. It's right there." She pointed toward Jake's workshop. "We can show you how we did it." Commander Vex looked in the direction Lisa was pointing. "Show me," he ordered. Jake and Lisa led the group of aliens toward the workshop. Jake's hands were shaking slightly, but he tried to focus on the technical details. Engineers understood engineering, even alien engineers. Inside the workshop, the evidence of their work was everywhere. Pieces of Keth's original ship sat on workbenches next to human tools and electronics. Blueprints and diagrams covered the walls, showing how they had combined the two technologies. Commander Vex examined everything carefully. He picked up pieces of Villani technology and human equipment, studying how they had been connected. Light patterns grew brighter as he worked, and Jake thought that might be a good sign. This interface design, Vex said, holding up one of Lisa's control modules. It bypasses the neural connection entirely. I've never seen anything like this approach. We had to think differently, Lisa explained. Keth couldn't use your neural interfaces because of his spine injury, so we found other ways to let him control the ship. Your people have been using the same technology for thousands of years, Jake added. Sometimes it helps to have fresh eyes look at a problem. One of the other Villani made a sound that translated as laughter, though not a happy kind. Fresh eyes? You mean primitive eyes? Your species has barely begun to explore space? Jake felt. A flash of anger. Primitive or not, we got Keth flying again. Your advanced medicine couldn't do that. Commander Vex held up a hand for silence. He continued examining their work, paying special attention to the technical drawings Lisa had made. The fusion of technologies should not be possible, he said finally.
Oh.
Villani and human systems operate on completely different principles. It's what we thought at first, Lisa said. But when you break it down to the basic functions, all technology does the same things. Processes information, makes decisions, and takes actions. The methods can be different, but the goals are the same. This ship you built for Scout Keth, Vex said. Where is it now? Keth took it home, Jake said. He left yesterday morning to find his family. Commander Vex was quiet for a long moment. His light patterns pulsed slowly as he thought. The other Villani watched him, clearly waiting for orders. You built a ship capable of interstellar travel in this primitive facility, Vex asked, using salvaged parts and basic human tools. We built a ship that works, Jake said simply. Whether it's primitive or advanced, doesn't matter if it gets the job done. And you did this for no payment, no technology trade, no demands for territorial concessions. Lisa looked confused. Why would we demand anything? Keth was hurt and stranded. We helped him because it was the right thing to do. The right thing to do, Vex repeated slowly, as if testing the words. You risked your time, your resources, and your safety to help a member of an alien species you had never encountered before, simply because it was right. Of course, Jake said. Wouldn't your people do the same? Commander Vex was quiet again. His light patterns had changed, becoming softer and more thoughtful. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded different. No, he said honestly, my people would not do the same. We would evaluate the strategic value of the situation. We would consider what advantage could be gained. We would make decisions based on logic and benefit to our species. That sounds lonely, Lisa said softly. Vex looked at her with surprise. Lonely? Always thinking about advantage and strategy, she explained. Never just helping someone because they need help. That would be a lonely way to live. Duh. The commander studied Lisa's face as if seeing her for the first time. You truly believe this? That helping others without reward is natural and correct? It's how we were raised, Jake said. It's how most humans think. We take care of each other, and we take care of strangers who need help. That's just what you do. Commander Vex walked to the window and stared out at the desert. His reflection in the glass showed light patterns that were dimmer now, almost gentle. The other Villani watched him with expressions Jake could not read. I came here to punish the species that had harmed one of our scouts, Vex said finally. I brought 3 war cruisers and enough firepower to sterilize this planet. I was prepared to demonstrate Villani's superiority and make an example of Earth. Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. And now, Vex turned back to face them. Now I find that Scout Keth was not harmed, but healed. Not imprisoned, but freed. Not stripped of his dignity, but given new hope. And this was done by a species my people. Dismissed as primitive and worthless. We're not worthless, Lisa said firmly. We're just different. Yes, Commander Vex agreed. You are different. You are something we have not encountered in our thousands of years of space travel. You are truly good. The commander's light patterns pulsed in what Jake now recognized as decision. I must speak with my fleet. What I have learned here changes everything. If humanity is capable of this level of compassion and ingenuity, then perhaps the galaxy needs to know about your species. What does that mean for us? Jake asked. Commander Vex looked at both humans with something that might have been respect. It means that, instead of conquest, we may be discussing alliance. It means that your small workshop may become the most important place on your planet. All because we helped one injured alien? Lisa asked. All because you proved that intelligence and compassion can exist together, Vex replied. My people had forgotten that was possible. Commander Vex spent the next hour examining every detail of Jake and Lisa's work. He studied the blueprints, tested the leftover equipment, and asked hundreds of questions about how they had solved each problem. His light patterns grew brighter. With each discovery, this control system you created, Vex said, holding up one of Lisa's interface boards. It translates human actions into commands our technology can understand. But it does more than that. It learns from the pilot's behavior and adapts to their needs. That's right, Lisa said proudly. You programmed it to get better over time. The longer Keth uses it, the more natural it will feel to him. Remarkable, Vex murmured. Our technology has always been static. It works the same way for thousands of years without change. Your approach allows for growth and improvement. Jake wiped his hands on a rag and looked at the alien commander. Is that really so unusual? Most of our machines get better as we use them and learn from our mistakes. Gamung. My people, machines are perfect from the moment they are built, Vex explained. We design them to exact specifications, and they never vary from those specifications. The idea of a machine that changes and adapts is completely foreign to us. One of the other Villani officers approached Commander Vex and spoke in their musical language. The translation device converted the words. Commander, the other fleet captains are requesting an update. They want to know when we will begin the punishment action against this planet. Vex's light patterns flashed with something that looked like anger. Tell Captains Rex and Zara that there will be no punishment action. Instead, prepare for a diplomatic contact protocol. The officer's patterns flickered with surprise. Sir, a diplomatic protocol? But these are primitive beings. The High Council's orders were clear about dealing with species that harm our scouts. The High Council's orders assumed these beings had harmed Scout Keth, Vex replied firmly. They did not harm him. They saved him. More than that, they gave him capabilities he never had before. The situation has changed completely. Jake could see tension between the commander and his officer. Is this going to cause problems for you? He asked Vex. Possibly, Vex admitted. My people are not accustomed to changing plans based on new information. We prefer to follow established procedures. But what I have seen here cannot be ignored. Lisa looked worried. What happens now? Do you take us prisoner? Do you study us like lab animals? No, Vex said quickly. You are not prisoners. You are potential allies. But I must convince my people that this is true. That will require proof. What kind of proof? Jake asked. Commander Vex thought for a moment. Would you be willing to? Come aboard my ship, to meet with my officers, and show them what you have accomplished here. Your work with Scout Keth could change how the Villani view other species. Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. The idea of going aboard an alien warship was terrifying, but they had come this far. Will we be safe? Lisa asked. We will be under my personal protection, Vex promised. And you will be returned here safely, regardless of what my officers decide. Then we'll come, Jake said. If it helps prevent a war, we'll do whatever you need. An hour later, Jake and Lisa found themselves walking up the ramp into the massive Villani ship. The interior was unlike anything they had imagined. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. The corridors were wide and curved, giving the ship an organic feel despite its obvious technology. Commander Vex led them to a large chamber filled with other Villani officers. Jake counted at least 20 aliens, all tall and imposing like Vex. Their light patterns created a constantly shifting display of colors and brightness. Officers of the fleet, Vex announced. I present Jake Martinez and Lisa Hayes, the humans who assisted Scout Keth. The room fell silent. Jake could feel dozens of alien eyes studying him and Lisa. Some of the light patterns seemed hostile, while others appeared merely curious. Captain Rex, a Villani, even larger than Vex, stepped forward. These are the primitives who captured our Scout. They seem small and weak. They did not capture Scout Keth, Vex said patiently. They rescued him from his crashed ship and treated his injuries. And then they built him a new ship when they learned he could no longer pilot ours, added Captain Zara, a female Villani, with intricate light patterns. I find this claim difficult to believe. Lisa stepped forward, her fear overcome by professional pride. Would you like to see the technical specifications? I have all our design work on my tablet. For the next 2 hours, Jake and Lisa explained their work to the assembled Villani officers. Lisa showed her electronic designs while Jake demonstrated the mechanical principles they had used. The aliens asked sharp questions and examined every detail. Gradually, Jake could see the mood in the room changing. The hostile light patterns softened as the Villani began to understand what had been accomplished. Several officers made sounds of amazement when Lisa explained how the adaptive control system worked. This is impossible according to our science, Captain Rex admitted. Neural interfaces cannot be replaced by mechanical ones, yet you have proof that it works. Maybe your science needs updating, Jake suggested gently. We humans are always changing our ideas when we learn new things. Captain Zara studied the technical drawings on Lisa's tablet. Your approach to the navigation interface is particularly clever. Instead of trying to replicate our neural connection, you created something entirely new that achieves the same goal. Sometimes, the best solution is not to fix what's broken, to try a completely different approach, Lisa explained. Commander Vex watched the discussion with growing satisfaction. You see, he said to his officers, these humans possess not only compassion but genuine innovation. They solved a problem that our own engineers considered impossible. Captain Rex's light patterns had shifted to what Jake now recognized as thoughtfulness. If this is true, if they can combine our technologies with theirs to create new capabilities, then perhaps we should reconsider our relationship with this species. What kind of relationship? Jake asked. An alliance, Commander Vex said. A formal agreement between the Villani Collective and humanity could share knowledge, trade technologies, and work together on projects that neither species could complete alone. Like what? Lisa asked. Clearly interested, Captain Zara's patterns brightened with excitement. Your adaptive control systems could revolutionize space travel. Combined with our faster-than-light technology, we could build ships that are safer and more efficient than anything either of our species has created. And your problem-solving methods, added Captain Rex, your willingness to try new approaches, could help us overcome challenges we have faced for centuries. Jake felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were discussing. You're talking about changing the entire relationship between our species, all because we helped one injured alien? You helped scout Keth because it was the right thing too. Do, Commander Vex said. That simple act of compassion has shown us something we had forgotten. Intelligence without kindness leads to stagnation. Power without mercy leads to loneliness. So what happens now? Lisa asked. Now I send a message to the High Council recommending full diplomatic contact with humanity, Vex replied. Your planet will be invited to join the galactic community as an equal member, not a conquered territory. And what about us? Jake asked. Do we go back to fixing broken engines in the desert? Commander Vex's light patterns formed. What Jake had learned was the Villani equivalent of a smile. I have a different proposal. Would you be willing to establish a joint research facility here? A place where human and Villani engineers can work together to develop new technologies? Lisa's eyes lit up. You mean make this into a real research center with the best equipment from both our species, Captain Zara added, and resources to expand your work far beyond what you could accomplish alone. Jake looked around at the alien officers, then at Lisa, then out through the ship's windows at his small workshop in the desert. 6 months ago, he had been a failing engineer with more bills than customers. He was being offered the chance to help build a bridge between worlds. There's one condition, Jake said finally. The Villani officers looked concerned. What condition? Vex asked. Keth has to be part of it. He's the one who made this all possible. Should be here to see what we can build together. Commander Vex's light patterns flashed with something that might have been joy. Scout Keth has already requested assignment as our liaison to humanity. He says he has unfinished business with 2 human engineers. That evening, Jake and Lisa stood outside the workshop, watching the 3 massive Villani ships prepare to depart. Two of them would return to Villani space to report the good news to the High Council. The third would remain in Earth's orbit as a symbol of the new alliance. "So we're really doing this," Lisa said. "Building a research center that will change the world." "We're really doing this," Jake confirmed, though I still can't believe it all started with finding one hurt alien in the desert. Above them, the stars looked different now. They were no longer distant lights, but destinations waiting to be explored. And somewhere among those stars, Keth was flying home in a small ship built by human hands and alien dreams, carrying the news that two very different species had found a way to work together. The beacon in Jake's pocket pulsed GE,